All right. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, wherever in the time zones you're connecting with us from. I am the summit coordinator and have a couple of things to share before we get started. As you can see in our chat, we have our tech support offering a couple of little overviews uh, for the summit today. So each session will be recorded, and it's important to remember that you will remain on mute for each presentation. Please use the chat feature in order to ask questions or to make a contribution, and feel free to use your reaction buttons. And so if you're on a computer, you'll find those reaction buttons at the bottom of your screen. It can be elsewhere if you're on a mobile device, but we encourage you to share your enthusiasm and your support and and react in whatever way you need to be reacting to this conference. So we appreciate you sharing those reactions with us. And we really thank you for your participation and hope you enjoy the conference. Before we get into more formal introductions of ourselves and what this conference entails, we have Ted Hernandez here, who is the chairman of the Wiyot Tribe. And I would like to invite Ted to lead us in the opening blessing.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. As we say in Wiyot, Guswalak, Hapwat Lo Ditnak, Ted Hernandez. I am the tribal chairman for the Wiyot Tribe, and I'm happy to be here this morning and give this wonderful blessing for this summit. And so, there's a lot going on in this world today, and there's a lot happening, and we just need to all come together and make changes. So, in Wiyot tradition, I would like to open up with a blessing. There we go. With Creator, I just thank you for allowing us to be here and allowing us to exchange ideals and being able to talk amongst each other and learn new ideals. I ask that you be with us during these summits and just continue to watch over us, all of us and our families, and just continue to watch over our communities and the world that we live in, and just continue to bless it. There we go. With thank you for everything you do for us. And hey-ho. And thank you guys for allowing me to do the opening blessing and just, enjoy this wonderful summit. There's a lot going to be happening, a lot to talk about. I know the Wiyot Tribe will be a part of this as well and discussing some wonderful information. And David and Nicola, thank you guys for allowing me to be here and speak. So let's enjoy the summit today.
Thank you so much, Ted. We're so grateful to have that blessing for the conversations that we're going to be sharing here together. So thank you so much for being here. I also want to acknowledge that I work on the ancestral lands of the Wiyot peoples, which includes the Wiyot Tribe, Bear River Rancheria, and Blue Lake Rancheria. I live on the ancestral territory of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, which includes Telomela, Winfeli, and Kalahuya. We are gathering today on the traditional lands of Indigenous people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. This calls us to commit to continue to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit as well. To recognize the land is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territory we reside on, and a way of honoring the Indigenous people who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. With this land acknowledgement, we recognize the spiritual connection and rights of the original stewards and traditional caretakers of this land. We thank them for their strength, perseverance, and resistance. It is important to understand the longstanding history that has brought us to reside on the land and to seek to understand our place within that history. Consistent with our values of reparations, community, and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible our relationship as settlers in relationship with Indigenous peoples. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold ourselves and the organizations we work on behalf of more attuned to the needs of American Indian and Indigenous peoples where we live, work, and organize. Land acknowledgements do not exist in a past tense or historical context. Colonialism is a current ongoing process, and we need to build our mindfulness of our present participation. Acknowledging the land is an important Indigenous protocol that we are honoring here today. And I want to invite you all to also acknowledge the land that you live and work on here in the chat. I find that this is a really useful resource to help you situate yourself and to come to understand the land that you're currently residing on. So some formal introductions. My name is Nicola Walters. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a lecturer at Cal Poly Humboldt formerly Humboldt State University, which is a Hispanic serving institution and one of the 23 campuses in the California State University system. Before COVID, my teaching position consisted of employment across 3 campuses, one being Cal Poly Humboldt and the other 2 being campuses in the California Community College system at College of the Redwoods main campus in Eureka, California, and on the Klamath Trinity site on the Hooper Reservation. I serve as the membership and organizing chair for the California Faculty Association, our statewide faculty union, and I'm a founding member of Higher Ed Labor United. I am incredibly honored to be a part of this summit, and I want to thank our organizers for putting together such an incredible event. We have almost 900 people joining this event over the next 3 days, and we have a lot of people to thank for their support, including all of you. Your support has made it possible for us to put together this conference without any financial barrier to entry. And beyond covering our organizing costs, we're able to pay our presenters for their participation in this event, so specifically prioritizing BIPOC presenters and supporting the people who are right now transforming the world around us. This summit is anchored by the Wiyot Tribe, Cooperation Humboldt, and faculty at Cal Poly Humboldt. When we talk about anchoring an event, these are the folks who are bottom lining the event and making sure that the summit happens. But this event would absolutely not be possible without our core organizing team. And I want to take a moment to thank a couple of people. David Cobb, who works for the Wiyot Tribe, serving as the department head of the now I'm butchering words at 9 a.m. in the morning, Dishgamu Humboldt Community Land Trust. And my apologies for my mispronunciation. I know David can help with correcting that. I'm so excited and nervous about having us all here today. Tony Salvaggio, a professor and department chair of sociology at Cal Poly Humboldt. Stephen Nashtagal, assistant professor of art and film at Cal Poly Humboldt. Morgan King of the Cal Poly Humboldt Sustainability Office. And our core organizing team also received support from Sarah Ray in environmental studies, Tamara McFarland at Cooperation Humboldt, and Michelle Vassell, Chief Executive Officer of the Wiyot Tribe. Throughout the summit, you'll also see our tech wizards offering support throughout the panels. These are students at Cal Poly Humboldt who are learning about the conference and community organizing. We are so grateful to have their support. And we also have a huge list of co-sponsors to share with y'all. And I'm actually going to put a little picture up on the screen so y'all can see this. We have a real growing list of folks that are incorporated and included in this conference through their support. This includes the Green Eco Socialist Network, the New Economy Coalition, the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network, Transition U.S., the People's Network for Land and Liberation, Shareable, One Project, Upstream, the California Faculty Association, Latinas en Poder, several Cal Poly Humboldt departments, including politics, sociology, art and film, environmental studies, Native American studies, and the Cal Poly Humboldt Sustainability Office. So we have a growing list of folks that are continuing to reach out to us to sponsor this event, and we are so grateful and thankful for the support. We'll be continuing to build to this beautiful graphic as the conference continues. This is our 3rd year holding the Post-Capitalism Conference, and our decision to focus on decolonizing economics resulted in some incredible resulted in some incredible panels and presentations over the next 3 days. This conference focuses on the ways in which individuals and institutions can create the infrastructure and practices to address economic disparities, often requiring us to protect or restore the land and water, distribute wealth towards marginalized communities, and invest in the solidarity economy. Our summit's 18 panels and presentations include Dishgamu Humboldt, Wiyot-led Community Land Trust, Decolonizing Restoration, Non-Reformist Reforms, Cooperation Cannabis, Higher Ed Labor United, or Higher Ed Labor Organizing rather, the intersection of white supremacy, capitalism, settler colonialism, film screenings, music, yoga for eco-grief, art, and more. But before we get too far into the agenda, I also want to share a little bit about what brought me into the summit and use the space to also introduce some of the efforts that are being led by the Wiyot Tribe, and finally share a little bit more about what we can expect over the next 3 days. So before becoming a teacher, I became involved as an organizer working on environmental campaigns in Colorado. I then began working on Indigenous rights, food access for the unhoused, and immigration reform in Northern California or Northern Arizona before I moved to working electoral politics and ultimately coming to California later on. But I used to make these distinctions between environmental, social, and political efforts. But my organizing experience has taught me otherwise along the way. Each of these areas are interwoven into the work that we do and are instrumental to our collective future. It was while I was a graduate student in Northern California that I founded a community coalition building group in Humboldt County to serve as a bridge between Cal Poly Humboldt's campus and the broader Humboldt community. We worked to aid the California Faculty Association during the 2015-2016 faculty contract fight and to address racial violence and houselessness impacting students, faculty, and community members. It was during this time that I came to understand two things: that coalitions are necessary if we are to address complex issues, even in small communities. And universities and colleges are not bubbles. They are situated within communities. What I was seeing in my community was reflected on campus, and what was happening on campus was reflected in my community. If we are to change the conditions within our institutions, we have to engage the conditions within our communities and recognize the impact of our campuses on our broader communities. The necessity of seeing this connection between environmental, social, and political issues and the role of coalitions and communities was solidified for me in the fall of 2016. I went as a representative of my Humboldt community group and graduate program to Standing Rock. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Standing Rock because that was my first encounter stepping up to the dividing line between capital and the state. It was last year that Chase Iron Eyes helped to speak to us during this conference and described putting his body on the proving line, on that proving ground where democracy is, and trying to understand where that line is. As Chase Iron Eyes said, I was able to feel very viscerally that this system was designed to protect capital and property, and that is all. His words continue to stay with me, and they really reflected my own experience. I spent the first 3 days that I was there involuntarily weeping. I kept saying, "Oh, it's windy. I must have dust flying in my eyes." But my heart was breaking and reforging in a manner that would change the way that I live, work, and organize. It was at this time I realized the limitations of my own learning, where the disconnect was between what I knew conceptually and what was really playing out in our country. I looked upon the meaning of resilience in the 500 years of survival before me. I learned that even though I was an academic and organizer, I was also like a child who needed to listen and learn before speaking in communities outside of my own. And as you can see, I'm still learning. And I'm continuing to learn what it looks like to be an ally as well as a co-conspirator. Since that experience, I've been able to see that the front lines are everywhere. I can also see more clearly what we are organizing against, as well as what we are organizing for. And so over the next 3 days, it is the hope of our summit organizing team that we will learn, share, explore, question, engage, connect, imagine, and transform through our participation in this space. There are transformative solutions to the crises we face growing all around us. This summit highlights a tiny sample of this work, but through the summit, we hope to contribute to the growing network of transformative solutions, strengthen existing organizations, especially those doing solidarity economy work, create a space for organizations to share best practices and collaborate across issues and constituencies toward collective liberation, and allow us an opportunity to co-create concrete next steps for how we can implement cooperative economic practices in our own communities. We sincerely thank you for joining this summit. And now I want to see if we can turn it over to the Wiyot Tribe and employees of the tribe to share a little bit about the current work that is happening.
Hawatlo. I'm David Cobb. As Nicholas shared, I am an employee of the Wiyot Tribe, and I am an uninvited guest on Wiyot ancestral territory. And, you know, my mama and papa, that's Southern for grandparents, taught me that when you are a guest, to act appropriately. And that can mean, for example, if any of you invite me to your home for dinner, I can assure you that I will offer to help clean up and wash the dishes because that's the right thing to do. And because I'm always worried my mama might hear that I didn't act right and have a talking to, right? And another thing that I've realized is that my culture has not taught me how to act appropriately on this land. And by this land, I mean any land. I also recognize that the last time my ancestors were in right relationship with the land, not just owning the land or controlling the land, but genuinely stewarding the land and in an appropriate relationship, was Scotland and Ireland of hundreds of years ago, or at least 100 years ago. And as I've told Ted, my boss, as well as my coworker, I don't have anywhere to go. I have to be here. And Ted smiled and said, you know, David, we're not saying that you can't be here, but I do think that we, the Wiyot people, can teach you how to properly be here. And so for me, that's part of the decolonizing journey. I also want to underscore that in addition to the idea of land acknowledgement, which is very powerful, I also want to lift up something that Cooperation Humboldt. I was the co-founder of Cooperation Humboldt and the former executive director. I've resigned that position in order to work for the Wiyot Tribe and put myself under the leadership of the tribe as we work on Dishkama. And Nicola, very loving and just, you know, gentle correction, because as Lenica, the linguist, has taught me, when I complained about, but it looks like Dishkamu, why can't we respell it? And she said, David, it's a different language. Get over yourself. This is how it's spelled. This is how to pronounce it. So Ted, make sure that Lenica knows that I'm learning as I go, and you know, get over myself. It's a different language. It's a different culture. So we're all on a learning journey. I've dropped into the chat what we at Cooperation Humboldt did, which was to make a commitment to pay an honor tax. That is 1% of the entire gross revenue of Cooperation Humboldt goes to the Wiyot people. I want to be clear, this is not a contribution. This is not a charitable donation. This is a tax to acknowledge that Cooperation Humboldt is on Wiyot territory and doing our work on Wiyot ancestral territory. And this is important because what I've come to understand is, although the Wiyot tribe is responsible and the Wiyot government is responsible for all of the things that government are responsible to do for the Wiyot people, they do not have the ability to tax the property or even their own land or the people on it. So this provides unrestricted funds for the Wiyot to be able to do the work that they want to do. And so if you, like me, live on or work or play on unceded Wiyot ancestral territory, please go to that link and join me in making a voluntary tax, whatever you decide is appropriate, directly to the Wiyot people. The second thing that I want to say before I open it up to Ted, and hopefully Adam will be able to join us, who's the Natural Resources Director, I want to make an observation. And that is that when I say that I am an uninvited guest here and I try to get in touch with my ancestors, this is not just a hat tip or a linguistic trick. It is to acknowledge what Chris Peters of the 7th Generation Fund for Indigenous Development told me once. And that was, he smiled at me and he said, you know, David, when we, and by we he meant Aboriginal Indigenous peoples who are still connected to that knowledge, he said, when we say that the trees are speaking to us, it's not a metaphor. And that really hit me. And he said, David, it makes me sad for you because I know you're a good human. I know you as a person. You're a good human. And it makes me sad that you can't hear that. But you're supposed to be able to hear it as a human. The problem is your ancestors were pushed off of the land where they could hear the trees and the fish and all of the interrelated life at that time. Your job is to reconnect to that. But don't worry, he said, it's in your DNA. It's going to take you more work. But that, my friends, is how I think about this idea of decolonization. We all descend from ancestors who were indigenous. And indigenous really just means that you're properly connected to the place. And so I want to turn to just sort of a conversation with Ted about some of the things that the Wiyot tribe are doing. And I say this, I don't romanticize the Wiyot tribe or Ted as a human or anybody. I know Ted as a human, and he's a good one, right? He's taught me a lot. I'm learning from him. I love working with him. But it is the idea of the cultural appropriateness that is something that we all have to learn. And so with that, Ted, I want to just open up the space for you and I think Adam will be able to join us in a bit, about some of the amazing things that the Wiyot tribe are now doing. And I actually want to start by inviting you to share a little bit about what the concept time immemorial means, because you've corrected me and helped me. I no longer say the Wiyot have been here for tens of thousands of years. We say it differently. So Ted, I want to turn it over to you and share that anecdote that you've shared with me and others about time immemorial.
Sure, time immemorial. That's a big word we can say, because we as the Wiyot people look at it, we've been here since the beginning of time. We have our own creation story, that puts us here. And all the data samplings we've been done have put us here since time immemorial. So we've been here. We have been one of the first people here, and we have our creation story that tells us that we've been here, and that's why. Tuluwat, India, or which once was called Indian Island, is important to us because that's the center of our world, and that's where we started from since time immemorial. So a lot of people can say that indigenous people have only been here for tens and thousands of years, but that's not true. Like David said, everybody has their own indigenous continent that they come from. And I pretty much can guarantee that anybody in their continents and their indigenous sides can say that they've been here since time immemorial too. That's how we look at it. We didn't come over a land bridge. We didn't come over anything. We've been here since Creator has put us here since time immemorial.
Thank you, Ted. And one of the things that has been helpful to me is a quote that you made you just in casual conversation. You said, David, we're not asking you to leave. We're asking you to treat the land differently. And I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about that sort of concept, especially as it relates to Tuluwat and the return of the center of the Wiyot universe, and to tell the story of Tuluwat so that folks who maybe have not heard that story can learn about it and I think be inspired the way I and others have been.
Yeah, so, like I say there, I say a lot of stuff sometimes, but this is more important is because my grandmother has always taught us, just like your mom, your mother, my grandmother, my mother, they always taught me that in Wiyot culture, if somebody comes into your house, you give them food. If they come into your house to rest, you give them a place to sleep. If they come into your house and they're not well, you bring them back to health. And if they wish to stay, you allow them to stay and be a part of your village. And, that's the way I look at it today, is that when somebody is asking if they can be here, I'm not going to, shoo them away because they want to be a part of this. The only thing that I ask is that if you're going to be a part of our Wiyot land, then you need to know the Wiyot history. Because there was a lot of history that nobody wants to talk about Wiyot country, and especially about our surrounding cousin tribes, Yurok, Hupa, Karuk, Tolowa, Wailaki. There's all these tribes that have their own trauma, and if you're going to sit on their lands and live on their lands, learn the histories of their lands, because that's how you can be more involved and you can learn about what happened during these times. And like Dave was talking about, Tuluwat is one of the biggest ones that we know, because that is in the history. That's in the history as when the day the bay ran red with blood, and people saw this on the Rika side. It's a history that people don't like to talk about, but we need to get it out there and we need to talk about it. Tuluwat is like I said in the beginning, was our center of our world. That's where the Wiyot people came, and that's where our ceremonies began. That's where we learned how to be Wiyots, and that's that is our center of our universe. But in the early February of 1860, there was this tremendous massacre by the colonists that lived on the other side of Eureka, that wanted to annihilate all the native communities here in Humboldt County. And we were doing our world renewal ceremony, which is one of our high dances, and it was during the daytime that we did the ceremony. And our young men were done, and they went out in the evening to go get supplies for the next day. And the settlers knew this, and they came across in their canoes, and they didn't bring guns. They brought knives, hatchets, clubs, and pretty much annihilated the Wiyot tribe that night. They pretty much annihilated them. We did have survivors that swam across the bay with stab wounds on their sides, they're holding their children. And, we had other members hiding underneath bodies. And they pretty much wanted to annihilate the tribes because they wanted the resources that we had here. Humboldt County is so, Creator blessed Humboldt County so good. I mean, he gave us the trees, the water, the fish, the gold. Even we had all of these natural resources here that was so abundant that they wanted it, and they wanted it for themselves. And so they decided that the only way they can get this is by taking up the natives and taking it for themselves. But I want people to realize that we weren't violent people. We weren't a warring people. We were peaceful people, and our jobs was to keep this world balanced. And that's why we were doing the high dance, the world renewal ceremony, was to keep this world balanced, to bring blessings and prayers to Creator so that we would have a better year in the incoming years, be healthy, and everybody around us be healthy. And we were always welcome people into our villages. We were more willing to welcome everybody into our villages. We taught outsiders how to fish in the waters. We taught the outsiders how to gather. We taught the outsiders what they needed to do, But some of them couldn't relate to that, and they wanted more. The greed got to them, and they wanted it for themselves. So that's when they came across and they did the massacre for the Wiyot people. The island, after the massacre, went into Gunther's name the next day, and he owned that property for so long, and he tried to have cattle there, and the cattle couldn't survive, and because of the salt water, so he built these canals, and he pretty much damaged the island from what it once was by putting all these man-made channels through the island. But and the reason I tell you the story is because I want you to understand the story when I get to tell you all about the return of Tuluwat, because you have to know what happened in the beginning to all the way to the end. So Gunther did this, and then in years past, it became a boatyard. And this boatyard is where they repaired boats and did all the repairs on the boats, like scraping the old paint on. Now, you gotta remember, all this old paint had lead in it, and all the asbestos and all these stuff that was not good for humans. These boats had. They would clean these boats on our sacred island. They would repair these boats on our sacred island. They would leave old parts that were no good on the island. So they didn't care on how they left the land. This was sacred land, and this is where, this is our church. This is the Wiyot church. This is where we did our high dances. This is where we did our prayers. But it shows so much disrespect. As years go by, there was a few landowners that owned property there, but then as well as the city of Eureka owned the property. Now, we had elders in the 70s that went to the city councils of Eureka and said, we want our traditional land back. We want our ceremonial land back. Give it back to us. And in the 70s, that didn't happen. They constantly went to the city of Eureka asking, city of Eureka kept denying. And finally, what happened was there was a 1.5 acres that came up for sales in the early 2000s, late 90s. And it was 1.5 acres, and they wanted $150,000 for it. And at the time, Cheryl Seidner, who was the former chairwoman, saw this, and she went to her council and says, I would like to raise the money to buy this 1.5 acres. And so council approved that. And Cheryl and her family and other tribal elders and other tribal citizens did a lot of fundraising to purchase this 1.5 acres. Now, you got to think about, we as a tribe should not be purchasing back our ceremonial lands, but we knew that this land was unhealthy and unclean, and it needed to be fixed. So Cheryl and her team did the fundraising, were able to raise money, but it wasn't enough. So she traveled to DC, where she went to a National Native American Congress convention, and she told the story about Tuluwat and how it was damaged. And after her speech, all these Native governments started writing checks and giving her donations to purchase the island. And when she got back to her room with her sisters, they counted, and they had just raised enough money to cover the rest of the costs for the return of the island. And so when she came back, she told council and she told staff, and that next day she was back in Eureka, we were able to purchase that 1.5 acres. And people asked us, why are you buying 1.5 acres of contaminated land? Well, if people knew that we are people, we were here to heal the land. We were here to bring the land back to balance. We knew our island was sick. We knew our island needed to be healed. That's why we purchased that 1.5 acres. And that was the start of the healing process of the island. We started looking for grants. We started looking for funding. We started looking for everything that we can find to help do the cleaning. Years go by and we're still, applying for grants, and we're still applying for every funding that we can get for 1.5 acres just to clean up 1.5 acres. Because in that 1.5 acres, which nobody really knew, was a highly contaminated zone. That was pretty much the red zone. So like if you had a nuclear fallout, that would be your center of that zone. That 1.5 acres was that zone. And we found the fundings, we got the island cleaned up, and years go by and we're still trying to get it finished, cleaned up. And our natural resource department, I wish Adam was here right now because he can help explain this too. But our natural resource department went to an EPA conference, and our director at the time, his name is Stephen Coleman, was talking to the EPA director over there, and he was talking about the island cleanup. And let me scoot back some because I forgot a part that I need to mention. So during the cleanup process in the early 2000s, the city of Eureka saw this. And the city of Eureka saw us cleaning up this contaminated area. So Cheryl Seidner went back to the city of Eureka, talked to Mayor Peter Lavelle, and says, we want our island back. And Peter Lavelle had never had this approach to him, and he said he would need to talk to his council. So Peter Lavelle went to his council of the city of Eureka at the time and discussed it. And they agreed that they can give back 40 acres back to the tribe. But there was, how would I say it? There was things on there that should not have been on there. There's things that we couldn't put the island into trust. We couldn't do this. We couldn't do that. And a lot of people were saying, why would you do this? We are not planning. And I think what a lot of people's concerns back then was that the casino was a booming thing, and people thought we were going to put a casino on our island. But why would we put a casino on a sacred land? That doesn't make sense. And the only reason why we wanted to be able to put it in trust is because if we can put it in a trust, we can get more federal funding to help clean the island as well as our bay. Work in partnership with the city of Eureka and help clean the bay. There would be more funding available for all of us to get the area clean, this all cleaned up. But they didn't want to, so we agreed to not put it in the trust, this 40 acres. And as years go by, in 2004, 2006 is when they gave it back. There was a big ceremony for it. And Cheryl Seidner and the mayor, Peter Lavelle, signed the deeds over to the Wiyot Tribe, which was an awesome day. I mean, it was an amazing event. We were able to get the 40 acres back. free. And you got to remember, this is the first time that any government agency or city agency or any agency whatsoever gave back ceremonial land without it being purchased. You know, the city of Eureka and the Wiyot Tribe created history by giving this piece of land back. And it started a chain reaction. But as the years go by, we were still doing the cleanup. And that's where we go back to Stephen Coleman and the EPA director. So the EPA director was looking for a big project to clean up. And Stephen Coleman goes, I have a project for you, and I want you to come out and see this project. And so when they came out, EPA came out, they saw how contaminated and how, you know, what needed to be done. So this is a perfect project where we can do, and we can do it together as an EPA department and with the Wiyot Tribe as a partnership. And that's where the cleanup, you know, was really happening, and we got it fully cleaned. And in 2012, we got the full clean bill of health, and it was ready to be stand on. It was ready to be ceremony. It was ready to do what it needed to be doing. And after we had the bill of health, Cheryl Snyder brought back to council saying that we need to complete the ceremony of 1860 that never completed after that massacre. So we completed that. Council approved it. We got our young men, our young ladies, our dancers, and everybody for ceremony from all over, from Yurok, Hoopa, Karuk, came and helped us complete that ceremony that was never completed in 1860. And we thought we were done. And we really did. And so as years go by, the mayor of Eureka came and, you know, offered an apology for what happened in the massacre. And it, you know, it was written by the city's attorneys. And because there was two, so I'm going to put there was two drafts to this letter, and he had the original, and the city attorney wrote one for him. His letter that he actually wrote from himself came from the heart. But the letter that was written by the city attorney, it wasn't really an apology letter. It was something had, you know, it was just more, I want to say, putting stuff under the rug. But after he read that, I already seen the original letter that he wrote, and he came to our council, and Cheryl Seidner at the time was a council member, and I was a chair. And he asked, what can he do? And Cheryl Seidner goes to him again, give us the rest of our island back. And I followed with her and saying, yes, give us our island back. If you want to make this correct, please give us our island back. And he says, I will go talk to my council. And he went and talked to his council. And his council, they all agreed. But this process took longer because we had to bring in lawyers. We had to bring in our lawyers, their lawyers. And the reason why it took longer is because we wanted to make sure we did it correct. We wanted to make sure that there was no stipulations put down. We wanted to make sure that we as a tribe and the city of Eureka were all on the same page when we did this. You know, it wasn't put together real fast. We wanted to make sure all of our I's were dotted and all of our T's were crossed. So it took about 5 years to get complete. And I was just going back and forth talking, and there was never no arguments. It was always a great talks and great working together with them. And finally, you know, we did have some oppositions as well, but finally, in 2019, the Eureka City Council agreed to give back I want to say it's about 270 acres of the island. And we did this in October of 2019 when the island was fully returned to the tribe. And that was without any stipulations, that was without anything. So now we can do things that can help the bay itself and the island come back to health. But still, in the process, the city of Eureka is the only city that has ever made this happen. And, you know, and a lot of people are looking at us as an example, and other tribes have come to us and said, how did you do it? We did it by talking and communicating with each other. But first we had to tell them the story of the island. We had to tell them the importance of the island. We had to tell them the history of the island to make people understand this is why we do this. You know, it's not because we want to become casinos or anything. It's why we're here. It's why the Wiyot people were here. and that is bring balance, not just for, like I said, not just for the Wiyot community, but for the entire community. And I always tell people, if you can give back your ceremonial lands to the tribes, to the lands that you sit on, that's the right thing to do. Because in order for all of us to want this healing in this world that's going on today, all the tribes need to have their ceremonial lands back so they can do their ceremonies, practice their prayers, to bring balance back into this world. And Dave was correct. It's not just the Native Americans here in this continent, but it's all indigenous continents. Everybody has their ceremonies, but we're not able to do these ceremonies. That's why our world is so unbalanced today. That's why we have all these traumas and all this drama that's happening in our world today. All these diseases that are coming out, all these sicknesses, it's because we're not balanced. The tribes, the indigenous tribes and indigenous people are not able to practice their ceremonies. And I have to quote Dr. Kutcher Rising Balding from HSU, just give back the land. The tribes know what to do with it. The tribes know how to work with it. The tribes know how to handle it. The tribes know how to bring things back to balance. It's important that we give the lands back so we can do what we need to do as medicine people, as ceremonial people, as prayer people, as gathering people. We know what we need to do to bring this balance back to the world. And then we need everybody's help to do this, not just Native community, it's everybody. And so it's what makes our world go around.
Thank you so much, Ted Hernandez. And you can see, y'all, I told you that I learned a lot from Ted Hernandez and that story that he told. I hope you are as inspired as I am and picked up that this is a redemption story. Not led, yes, centered, yes, by the Wiyot people, but non-Wiyot alike have a role to play alongside. That site reuse award that the Wiyot tribe won, the work was led by the Wiyot tribe, but non-Wiyot people joined the Wiyot in taking out, I believe, 80 tons of contaminated debris. And again, as Ted mentioned, literally the tribe earned a EPA Site Reuse Award. And Adam Cantor has joined us, the Natural Resources Director for the Wiyot Tribe. I'm gonna invite Adam into the conversation. I'll ask our tech wizard, Tristan, to please spotlight Adam and bring Adam into the conversation so you can share a little bit, not only about Tuluwat, but some of the other work that the tribe is doing through your department. So Adam, are you with us? We'll need you to in order to get spotlighted, we need you to unmute and we need you to come onto camera if you can. Adam? Rats, he may be having a problem. Ted, I know that you've got his.
I think he might be out there.
I
think Adam might be. There he goes.
I just heard him. Yeah, that's right. Because I just forgot. He had told me. So speaking of habitat restoration, I want y'all to take a look at Adam's background as we welcome Adam. Hawatlo.
Hawatlo. Good to see everybody. And great to hear the story of Tuluwat, Ted. I never get tired of that, this amazing story of the return of that sacred place. And I'm coming to you from Marashawak, this undisclosed cultural site here on the Wiggy. And this is a site that the tribe's in negotiations with the Ocean Protection Council to hopefully rematriate to the Wiyot. It's an amazing Sitka spruce forest, tons of culturally important plants. I'm kind of in a salmonberry thicket right now, in a beautiful Sitka spruce forest. And this area was logged in 2014. And of course, we know, after logging, a lot of times invasive species are ripe to reestablish in those areas that were recently logged. And so there's lots of pampas grass, Scotch broom, Monterey pine, English ivy. And, when the tribe is able to, regain stewardship of this site, that's going to be one of the first projects we work on is getting some of the ivy out of these magnificent spruce trees and starting to create an ecocultural restoration plan that we're also going to be kind of working with the Cal Poly Humboldt Food Sovereignty Lab and engaging Wiyot youth and the tribal forestry program. So super exciting. We're super excited about it. And yeah, I know this is the theme of this conference, decolonizing democracy, decolonizing capitalism. And, one reason I can't disclose this location is because unfortunately there's people out there that when they find out if a tribe is interested in a piece of land, that makes them mad, and they'll run out and they'll try to buy it from out from under the tribe, offer more money. And so hopefully through efforts like the tribe stewardship, we'll try to rewrite that stereotype and spread the word that the best thing that we can do to steward our lands is to return them to the ancestral peoples that were the original caretakers.
Thank you so much, Adam. And thank you for coming at us from the field. Many people in the chat were excited to see that. And like me, it just fills me with joy. And it also fills me with joy to bring Lineika Butler into the conversation, who is the Wiyot tribal linguist. So if we can put Lineika on spotlight and make sure that she is unmuted, would love to bring Lineika in to have some conversation about her work.
Hello, everyone. And I just want to make clear that I myself am not native. I'm not Wiyot. I am a linguist. And I have been working with and for the tribe for over a decade now. And it's a situation, the tribe should not need a linguist because there should be people still speaking their mother tongue. But because of things like the massacre, because of all of the effects of colonization, genocide, forced assimilation, all sorts of things, the last first language speakers of Sulatlak, which is the native name for the language of the Wiyot people, those last first language speakers passed by the mid 20th century. And so my work involves the extensive documentation of the language and helping process that documentation, make sense of it, get it all into some kind of consistent spelling system for one thing. I know that people have some difficulties with the spelling system. It's not like English, first of all, and English, you may have noticed, is insane with spelling. So it's no model to follow. I mean, we have pair, spelled all different ways. Never mind, O-U-G-H can be pronounced any number of different ways. So we're not trying to emulate English spelling, but so the point being, it is a consistent spelling system now adopted by the tribe to put all these old documents that are written in all sorts of different spelling conventions into one sort of unified system and make it all accessible, because these are, in my view, these treasures. There's documentation of the language from as far back as I think the earliest word lists with a Tikwa, a white man interviewing a Wiyot person, Sulatlak speaker, are from the 1860s or 1870 approximately, and all the way through to the late 1950s with one of the last known first language speakers, over a dozen Tikwa researchers, some of them very good at what they did, some of them terrible. So there's a whole range of quality of the documentation. Some people, Adam works, consults a book by Llewellyn Loud very often, who mapped the area in about 1912, 1918, and left a lot of important information about village sites and so forth. But he had an absolute tin ear and you can't rely on him for Sulatlak pronunciation at all. And then there are some researchers who are really, truly excellent, very, very exacting in their rendering of pronunciation. And one in particular, the one that's really well known is Carl Teeter, who worked with Della Prince, whose voice you'll hear. And she's the last known or documented fully fluent speaker, quite possibly not the very last one who lived, but the last one that we know of. And Teeter did really important work, but before him, at least 30 years before him, Gladys Reichert, an anthropologist, came in 1922, and she spoke with about a dozen adult Sulatlak speakers. And she really cared, and she was incredibly respectful, and she gathered a lot of really excellent language and cultural information. So I thought I would just share my screen to show you. So all of this is sort of background. This is what we have to work from. There are, fortunately, really, really fortunately, also audio recordings of mostly of Della Prince, that last speaker that we know of, but also a little bit from another female speaker, Nettie Rossig, and a little bit from one male adult speaker, Weaver Denman. So we have three adult first language Sulatlak speakers recorded in audio. We're working with that, and then with field notes and books in various levels of accuracy and detail. And there are thousands of pages, okay? And so it's a tragedy that that the tribe is in the situation where they need somebody like me who has worked with these sorts of materials, who can come in and go, okay, this is what this is trying to say, and put it into some sort of form that tribal members can actually use, that makes sense, that doesn't need a degree to muddle through these ancient field notes and so forth. So I'm going to show you, so it's tragic in that sense. It would be, obviously, it would be far, far better if Antigua, like myself, was completely unnecessary, and people could just learn from their elders, right? As they did for since time immemorial. But that opportunity was taken from them by people, you know, my ancestors. And so I'm trying to help put this back, put the language back in the tribe's hands, and do my best to help people learn from these materials, and so that then the tribe can take it forward and reclaim it for themselves. And so I will share my screen. I'll show you just a few of the materials, and we'll listen to Dishkama, pronounced by Della Prince, okay? So let me share a screen. Okay, can everybody see this? Okay, so these are the field notes. This is one of about 1,400 pages of field notes from Gladys Reichert's 1922 fieldwork here in Wiyot territory. And I should just say, she was only here for about 3 months, and she did an unbelievable volume of work and really unbelievable quality. She did write her dissertation and publish a book describing the language based on these notes, but the book is only a couple of hundred pages long. There are 1,400 pages of notes. There's a lot that didn't make it into the book. It just informed her analysis. So I do work directly from the field notes as well. And I pulled up an example. Here's the word Dishkama. It's got a little suffix on it, but that's Dishkama, and you see her little note, I like. Okay, so that's an example of some of the materials we work from. Then I turn that into, I've been annotating my screen without meaning to, I'm sorry. Those red lines, ignore them. I am putting all of this into a searchable database, right? This is actually a note from Teeter interviewing Della Prince. That's the same word, Dishkama, okay? So that it can be searched. We've got about 29,000 words and phrases digitized so far, and there's a lot to go. But this is how we reconstruct, okay? And then a picture, Della Prince, person I keep mentioning, this is the speaker who worked with that linguist in the 50s. She passed away, I believe, 1962. And that is the last first language Sulatlak speaker that we have on record, right? Who chose to work with Tikwa researchers, okay? So this is your voice, her voice that you'll hear. And this is the link that I posted in the chat. So anybody can go back and click that link. I also uploaded the QR code that links to this. So that's her saying it. And I do my best to emulate her pronunciation, but I'm gonna have my Tikwa, my American English accent. So Tishkam is that word. It means I like it. I like it. I love it. I like him or her. I love him or her. I like to do whatever it is. I love to do whatever it is. So I like it. I love it. Yeah, and I just want to say that the tribe has come so far. In the years that I've been here, I've seen such big projects. The island cleanup, I was here when they were doing that. It was massive. The island return, and you're seeing more and more Sulatlak language getting out in the community. And I'm just really proud to be, behind the scenes, be a part of that. You see the Kutitni Gallery at HSU. Kutitni is the name of Arcata, means over in the woods. You see the Hikshari Trail. In Eureka, that is, Hikshari is the name for the mouth of the Elk River. Just yesterday, they inaugurated the Gutswarak Student Activity Center at Cal Poly Humboldt, which Gutswarak, that was in consultation with the tribe. That name was chosen because it means many people gather. And so it's just really exciting to see the language get back out there and be visible. And I just hopped on my computer this morning and I saw that 113 people had scanned the little QR code to listen to Gutswarak at the new student center. So I kind of have a little, right, I have a little, I can see in real time people hearing Sulatlak, and it's all just very exciting. That's language is what lights me up. And so, and I know that I can't know emotionally, culturally, what it feels like. Me as somebody who I just love language, but this is, it's a whole, I know that it's a whole other level for the Wiyot people themselves. And I just want to do everything I can to put all of this, everything that was saved, that was preserved of the language, to put it back in the people's hands. And I just love seeing its presence grow and reclaim its places back in Wiyot territory as well.
Thank you so very much, Lenica. So grateful for the work that you're doing, and want to bring Ted Hernandez back into the conversation. Speaking of the return of Sulatluk, to talk a bit about the Cultural Center and the amazing work that's happening there.
Sure it is. But I do have to, I saw that in the chat that somebody asked if Arcata was a Wiyot word, and no, it's not. The word for Arcata is Guditmi, and that is not a Wiyot word. But like Lenica says, and I have to say this first before we talk about the Cultural Center, I have a very, very awesome team. My team is awesome. They don't get enough recognition out there. They do an awesome job in getting their language out there, promoting the culture of the Wiyot tribe. Adam out in the woods right now. My team is one of the awesomest teams out there, and they need to get recognized for the work they do, because they don't get that much recognition because they're hiding in the background. And I try to get Lenica out of her little cubby once in a while, but she likes it in there. But my team is awesome, and they're led by a strong tribal administrator, Michelle Vassell. as a chairman, I can ask for any other better team. This is one of the best teams I've ever had, and I'm so honored to have them as my team. But we were talking about the cultural center. So yes, the cultural center is now located in Old Town Eureka at 417 2nd Street, and we are in the process of getting it open soon. And it will be open to the public. So we are looking to have classes there, cultural classes there, and the reason why we moved from the reservation to Old Town is because now we have more access to our tribal members that live in the area of Eureka or close to McKinleyville, that they can commute to, because a lot of people have a hard time commuting out here to the reservation for cultural classes. And by us having the cultural center in the middle of Eureka, it's awesome. I mean, we've been wanting this for a long time, and now we're there, and we're doing the final repairs and touch-ups that we can get the building ready to go and make it safe for the public to come in and enjoy everything that we have in there. And it's going to be, one of those things where if people want to know more about the history of the Wiyot, come to the cultural center and we'll show you, we'll teach you. Lenica's there doing language. Marnie Atkins, the cultural center manager, she's willing to show people the history and teach people the history. My team is, I wear, as David knows, I wear many hats. I'm the cultural director, ceremonial leader, travel chairman, but from 8 to 4, I am the director for the culture department, and my team, that's Lenica, Marnie, Hazel. My team is awesome, and they're always doing what they need to do to help the public. We have the information, and being able to put our language out in all over Humboldt County is my dream and my goal, and we're making that happen. Not only does Cal Poly Humboldt, they have the new center, the new words, and there's a lot of words that are being put into Cal Poly Humboldt from the Wiyot Tribe because we have that amazing partnership. And not only Cal Poly, but we also got to show Del Arte's putting words out. The community wants Wiyot words out there, and that's why it's important that we have the cultural center where we're at, so people can come talk to us about it and consult us about it, and it's easier for them to get to us and talk to us about. But the important part about the cultural center is that it's going to be an educational facility where people can learn about Wiyot history, learn about Wiyot culture, learn the language. Because I'm like you, Dad, sometimes I have to tell them, can't we just say it this way? Because Wiyot language is hard. And then it always has to tell me, no, it has to be said this way. And then sometimes she tries to get me to say words, and she always gets her way, but it's nice to have somebody be able to show me how to do those words. And by the cultural center being there, people can come in and learn the words, because then we'll have the barcodes up where people can actually go to the objects and scan them and learn what those are. And right now, we are not open, but I know Marnie has said that if people call to make an appointment and if she has time, she will walk them through the center. And right now we have Wiyot Elder, whose artwork is being displayed in there right now, is Rick Bartow. His artwork is being displayed there as well as the Gudini at Cal Poly. I gotta get used to saying Cal Poly. I'm still used to saying HSU. But the Cultural Center is going to be an educational facility where we can teach people the history of the Wiyot people, the culture of the Wiyot people, and the best part about our center, it overlooks our bay and we can see our island, and it brings, it's a coming together, and we're able to work with other agencies closer. And that's the important part. And so I'm saying that when we get this center open, I know Marty's going to be excited to have people come visit, and especially when she does her cultural classes. It's going to be exciting because we'll be able to teach young women how to do dresses, and when they're making their dresses, how to do it in their language. This is going to be the awesome part. Or we're teaching young men how to make ill hooks, and they're doing it in their language as well. So they're getting 2 lessons in one. And this is just not for the Wiyot enjoyers. We're going to probably open it for people to come in and join us for these classes. Because like I said earlier, if you want to live on Wiyot land, you need to know the culture, you need to know the traditions, you need to know the history of the Wiyot tribe. And this is it. By us having this center there, we are able to share it and give people the information that they need. So please, when we open up, please come see us and come, ask us questions.
Ted, thank you so very much. I do want to share that in the chat, there were a couple of questions if you have time and inclination. Jennifer asked about the artwork that's behind you.
Oh, the artwork. So that's another project that the cultural department and the natural resource department are working on, and that is to bringing down the dams of the Eel River, because the Eel River is, one of our main rivers, and it's a lifeline to the Wiyot people. But the artwork that I have is an eel on the Eel River, and the artwork was done by Tommy Hernandez, his father. And Tommy Hernandez owns Humboldt Apparel in Arcata, the little shop there. So go see him. He has a lot of great stuff there. I'm not trying to sell stuff, but he does. His father did the artwork for us, and we were able to put it on stickers, and we've been able to make shirts with it and patches, and Tommy is one of those individuals that just wants to help the tribe, and whatever we need, he goes to it and says, yes, I can do that for you guys, and he does it for us. And this artwork was done by his father. His father did it freehand. They came to us with a couple ideas, but the tribe liked this one the most, and this is the one we went with. And like I said, it's an eel swimming in the river, saying undam the Eel River because it needs to be undammed. So it's like, give us our land back, but also take the dams down in the rivers, because our rivers need to flow freely. And of course, the Eel River is one of the largest rivers in California, and it needs to be a free-flowing river again. And that's what we're working on right now, is to make sure it happens.
And Ted, speaking of the Eel River, and it is one of once, at least for me, once I began to really grapple with the language and think about it, that decolonization process begins. For example, Linica has taught me that Jirajiji, the name for Eureka, means a good place to stop and rest, because it orients for Wiyot people, indigenous people, it orients to where the natural world. I also am wondering if we can talk a little bit about the name of that river and the word Wiyot and abundance and what that means, because it begins to unpack so very much. And then, so if we can do the language part of the Eel River and the word Wiyot, and then make sure to get Adam in on the undam the eel process. So Linica and Ted, I'm wondering if y'all could talk a little bit about the language and the word Wiyot.
I'll let Linica chime in on the language part, because like I said, I don't like to mess up our words, and sometimes I will mess it up. But I'll let Linica chime in on that part. But I can talk about why it means abundance, but I'll let Linica go first.
Yeah, so Wiyot is the name of that river, and let me just play that for you instead of me giving my pronunciation. This is Della Prince, who you heard before, and then following her is Nettie Rossig, the other woman, Wiyot woman who was recorded. Okay, so I should say the two female fluent speakers that were recorded. That's them saying the name of the river. It's the name for the river and the watershed, the general area, and that got applied to the whole group of people by white people, but according to speakers 80 and 100 years ago, people would identify themselves by which area they were in, the Wiyot area generally, or the Wiki Bay area, if that's where their home village was, or the Atawat Mad River area. And so the Wiyot people themselves did not traditionally all call themselves Wiyot. That's the name of the river. So they would only use that as part of their identity if that's where they came from, that area, Wiyot territory. And so, of course, leave it to white people to not pay that much attention and just apply one word to a whole group of people. Along those lines, I'm just going to say this really quick, but it drives me crazy. There's this book called, I don't know if you can see it, The Quest for Kuala Walu. And I'm trying to hunt down the origins of why anybody thought that Kuala Walu was the name of the bay. Because early writers, some people, and this book, all it mentions is the Indian name of the bay is Kuala Walu. Well, Kuala Walu means in Sulatlak, there is nothing there. Nothing is seen. It's how you say there isn't anything. There is none. And so I'm trying to track down the origins of this, if it was just a total misunderstanding or somebody not being cooperative and, you know, being asked the name of the bay and a native speaker being like, what, no bay, there's nothing. I don't know where it came from, but it's just rampant. I don't have time to get into the story of Lolita, but the misunderstandings they just multiply when the white colonizers who come along, they don't understand, they don't really care to understand, so many of them. And so that's how Wiyot got applied to a whole group of people that actually comprised people from Wiyot, that river area, people from Wiki, people from Batawat, and surrounding areas in Wiyot territory. So we call it Wiyot in English now. We're talking about the group of people just because that's the way it's been done for so long, but that's not or the origin of that is the name of the river on that floodplain.
And Ted, you did teach me that Wiyot also for that river was another word for abundance. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit, or no, did I misunderstand that?
I think so, because I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. Yeah, I can see that the name of Batawat, it looks like it's related to Patao, which is the word for a spring or a creek. I haven't figured out, I mean, and I may never, I don't know. So some place names may be, the original meaning, if any, may be lost in time, or some place names, just like Wiyot personal names, Sulatlak personal names don't appear, they just appear to be names, just like names in English for the most part. And so I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And
it
folks, what you're
certainly was a very abundant river for for millennia. And the only reason it's not now is because of what's been done to it.
And thank you. So, and thanks for the correction. And folks, what you're seeing is the learning in real time, right? As we go. So I genuinely thank you for that correction, Linica, and helping me to see it better. But I do want to bring Ted and Adam back in, because undamming the Eel River, or the Wiyot River, is something, it's not a done deal. And I really want to give some space to talk about what still needs to be done there. So Ted and Adam?
So, first I'm going to let Adam talk about the dam removal. But about the abundance, where I hear the words from abundance is from our elders and the stories they tell, because at one time the Eel River was so abundant of salmon that it was one of the biggest fisheries here in California that sent most of our salmon all across the United States. And our elders would say stories about how abundant it was. You could walk across the back of salmon to get to the other side of the river. And that's where I get the abundance from. It's like, can you imagine the river being that healthy where there's so many salmon in that river, you literally can walk across their back to get to the other side of the river. Today, that river is not healthy. And that's why it's important to remove the dam, so our salmon can grow back to the healthy population that it was and bring back the population, because a lot of people don't understand that is our resource, that is our food. And that's why we rely on our salmon and our eels, is because native population has the highest abundance in diabetes. And if we can bring back our traditional foods and give it to our elders, think about how much we can drop in the diabetes, how much we can bring our elders back to full health, or even our younger generation to full health. So it's important to bring everything back to where it was and naturally. But then that's where I got the word abundance, from hearing elder stories, because they were always telling me how abundant it was with eels when they were young. They would go out and gather eels in gunny sackfuls, just off the ripples in the Eel River. Today, they can't do that. So they have to go out to the mouth and catch eels. So that's how healthy our river was, and that's how abundant it was. And it is important to us. And, you know, I'm going to let Adam talk about the undamming part because you're right, David. It is not a done deal yet. It still has to go through this process. And, you know, and like I tell, and David, you know me for, you know, a long time, it's going to happen when Creator wants it to happen. And right now, Creator started that opening of that door. But, you know, it's like I tell our staff, we're not getting our hopes up just yet because it's a long ways to go. And we can be a tool in this project and help getting it to where it needs to be. Because we have always said, we want a free-flowing river. We don't want to divert no more water. We want a free-flowing river so that our salmon and everything can be healthy again. So Adam, I'm gonna put the dam part on you.
Can I ask a quick question first, Ted?
Yeah.
I was just looking at some notes. Can you give me an idea when a tribal member goes out and goes eeling today? Like what's how many eels they might catch? Gutao, I should say. Gutao. How many gutao?
Gutaos? So gutaos today usually they're bringing home maybe on a good day.
Yeah, a good day.
I would say I can't say on a good day because if I tell the numbers, I'll get my eelers in trouble because there's a limit that they can only catch. But if it was a good day, they would catch. If it was a good day, they would catch their limit of 10.
Okay. So I just found, I remembered some little notes. Remember Gladys Reichard with her scribbly handwriting. So this is from her interview. She got a lot of cultural interviews too. And so in 1922, the person she was speaking to said that when you would set a basket in the river, good luck would bring as many as 80 or 90 in one basket, and they would set out as many as 8 or 10 baskets.
That is true, and that's where.
So that's hundreds.
That is so true.
On a good day.
That is true.
I just wanted to highlight that's a century ago. That's exactly a century ago, 1922, and that's what the elders were telling Gladys Reichard, and keeping in mind that a lot of damage had already been done by 1922. So from hundreds then, probably a lot more before. So I knew I had a little note there and I wanted to share.
No, I'm glad you shared that because that is so true. Because, you know, I heard stories and I use my grandmother a lot because she's the one that tell me stories. And that at the time, her and the James families and Sidner families would go down to the river and they would come back with gunny sacks. You remember those old potato sacks of eels, and were able to spread it out amongst the elders and everybody else. Not just, you know, for their families, but they were able to spread it out. And you know, it started dying out because of the river and how it is now, you know, and the population my elders used to tell me that they would never eel off the mouth. They would always use the ripples in the river because it was safer. But now that our river is like dying, our younger generation have to go to the mouth, and it's dangerous eeling off that mouth. You have to keep an eye on those waves. You have to watch everything. You can't turn your back on the ocean because it's very powerful, you know. And one of my elders told me, "Why are they doing it?" I said, "They can't get eels out of the ripples that much, so they go out to the mouth." He goes, "Well, when I was young, we used to go to the ripples and we would come and catch as many as we can, and then we would also go down further and go down to Garville where they had a dam and just pluck them off the dams. There's dams walls, and you know that was easier for them. But now the way our river is, and the way our river is not healthy, our young people have to go to the mouth and gather eels, and they have to watch out for themselves. They always have to go in teams because you have to have that person watch you in case something does happen. And so, you know, that's why we want the river to come back to health. And I'm gonna let Adam talk about the undamming part and how important it is for the process to happen.
Adam, we know you're in the field, so I'm hoping that you're able to hear and come off mute and talk a bit about the FERC process.
Oh, well, the FERC process is long, and I know there's been a lot of announcements and excitement about the license expiration of the Potter Valley project, which when we say the Potter Valley Project, we're talking about Scott Dam and Cape Horn Dam in the headwaters of the Eel. Basically, Scott Dam, which forms Lake Pillsbury, provides water storage that then goes down into Cape Horn, where there's a water diversion. Like I think it's like 1,000 or 2,000 foot old growth redwood tunnel that goes through the mountain to Potter Valley and drops down the hill through some turbines in a powerhouse and ends up in the East Branch of the Russian River, which would have historically dried up during the summer months in our California Mediterranean climate. So it's exciting. FERC license to operate hydropower projects generally are for 50-year increments. And so it's really a once in a lifetime opportunity that we are able to change the course of a hydroelectric project. And that's where we are today with the Eel River dams. And so what we're hoping will happen is we're hoping that FERC will order PG&E to fully decommission the project, which means also removing the dams, removing the diversion, or if there's a diversion at all, having it be a summer diversion only that doesn't require a dam. Right now, there's a fish ladder that doesn't work and puts the tribe's culturally important lamprey, or what colloquially are known as eels, at risk from predation. The damming of the river allows for increased warming of water temperatures in the summer, which provides a better habitat for the invasive Sacramento pike minnow that preys upon juvenile salmonids. And so what this all means is the story's not over. We need to continue to stay engaged, to be waiting and watching the news for the moment that FERC, and PG&E make a statement about the next requirements of the decommissioning and license surrender process, and just encourage people to get on the FERC docket and talk to your congressmen and senators and populate the FERC record with demands to remove these dams and restore the Eel River and the Wiyot River culture, which is, probably the one biggest step we can do to help recover salmonids in the state of California.
Thank you so much, Adam, for that. And I want to let everyone know, if you write, we will make sure to let you know how to get into the FERC record, especially if you are in this area. So thank you to Adam for joining us from the field. Thank you, Lenica, for the incredible information. And of course, Ted, thank you for not only your participation on this panel, and for your welcome, but also for your leadership here in Wiyot Ancestral Territory. And I'm going to turn it over to Nicola for some final thoughts about the rest of the day. And as I turn it over, I want to make this observation. Remember that this is the 3rd annual post-capitalism conference, right? The Wiyot Tribe participated in the first 2, and we were grateful for that. But as this relationship developed, and it really is, everything is about relationships. As this relationship developed between the Wiyot Tribe, Cooperation Humboldt, and the key departments at then Humboldt State University, now Cal Poly, I had the honor of going to the Wiyot Tribe, the tribal council, and ask them to not merely participate, but to actually join as co-anchors of this summit. And they unanimously voted yes. Ted made the proposal, and the rest of his tribal council all acknowledged it and said yes. So that is when the collective decision was made in partnership to literally change the name from the Post-Capitalism Conference to Decolonizing Economics, the third annual Post-Capitalism Conference. So we are learning together. We are learning as we lead. We are teaching as we fight for the new world, to create that new world. And Nicola, I'd love to give the last bit of time on this panel to you to talk about the rest of the day.
Well, thank you so much, David. And thank you so much, Ted and Lenica and Adam. Y'all were so incredible in presenting today and sharing all of your teachings with us. So for today, I just wanted, as we're entering the last couple of minutes of this session, to just highlight a couple of things that are going to be happening across the next 3 days. So we'll have, following the session, starting at 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, what is to be done. And that's going to be a really incredible panel discussion for thinking about how we're moving into this next phase of thinking about post-capitalism. We have contesting for contesting for power for people's economy from 1 to 2:30, and then Dishgama Humboldt Community Land Trust from 3 to 4:30. So you can learn more about that partnership and the developments that are happening. And thank you so much, Lenica, for teaching us all of our words and pronunciations today. 5 to 6:30 this evening, public banking, local public banking. And then we actually are doing a partnership with the Native American Studies and the Food Sovereignty Lab to offer 2 films that will be screened, as well as having a discussion with Michelle Aguilar. So those films are going to be available in partnership with that, with the Food Sovereignty Lab and Native American Studies. We hope you join us for that today. If you look on our website, you'll also see that we have, over the next 3 days, yoga, continued conversations about capitalism, conversations with artists that we're incredibly excited about, thinking about the People's Network for Land and Liberation, decolonizing restoration, music on Friday evening. And then our full schedule on Saturday will help us to think about non-reformist reforms, cooperation or cooperative cannabis for post-capitalist communities, thinking about carbon supremacy, false equivalencies, and corporate impunity, looking at really climate policy on a broader level. We'll talk about labor and organizing higher education, white supremacy, capitalism, and settler colonialism. And finally, we'll close our 3 days with putting art to work on our Saturday evening session. So thank you all so much for being here. We're so excited to be able to share these 3 days together, and we'll see you all for our following panels. Have a good rest of your morning or afternoon. We'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Josh.
Have a great day, guys.
Walks.
Walks.